Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the call. We've been having one small technical issue, which is that John is not yet in front of his computer. I've just spoken to him on the phone. He's on his way there right now, so we should get him in the next couple of minutes, hopefully. In the meantime, you'll have to put up with me talking about him for a bit. For those of you who don't know who John is, I'll give you a brief potted history as to how we met him and know him. Back in the late 90s, seems like a very long time ago now, in fact it is, I started running a program that John and his colleague and longtime business partner Bob Proctor put together called Born Rich. And in our previous network, I was facilitating that program for members of the network and in fact people outside of it. And I did that for about 10 years overall. I still have all the materials and I still teach an awful lot of the stuff that was in it. As a consequence of really teaching and facilitating that program, I met both Bob and John. I struck up a real friendship with John, actually. Not only a friendship, but he has acted as a mentor and a guide to me over many a time. And I got to know him extremely well and began to really fundamentally understand a lot of the lessons that he teaches and talks about. And the more I've been exposed to the sort of ideas that he puts across, the more I've learned about how well the mind works, how you get out of life what you put in, how you are really a reflection of the way you think about yourself. You never outperform your own self-image. And John, over many years, has written numbers of books. He's been a public and a keynote speaker at huge numbers of events. He's spoken at a great number of actually network marketing companies over the years. And as apart from being a mentor and a coach of mine, is also a personal friend, as I mentioned. And I would say the same for Sue too. We've a very strong relationship. So much so that over the last 18 months or so, he and I have been working together to promote more of his material, because whilst John is extremely experienced, unbelievably knowledgeable and very insightful, inspirational, and all the things that you would expect in someone of his experience, he's not very well known outside of North America and parts of the Far East. You can pretty much slot him into anywhere, and in fact he speaks every day still. He doesn't need to do it, but he does it because he loves it a lot. And I've been talking with John about expanding the sort of franchise of the information and the material he has to help other people who are really interested in their own personal development and creating change, real change in their lives, helping him to pull that together in a way which really puts his material out there and gets him a much bigger franchise perhaps than he has at the moment. So much so he's coming to the UK again later this year, probably late August, more than likely early September. He'll be running 2 or 3 seminars while he's here, a preview day which will be by invite, and people can come along, spend the day with John, listen to him, see if there's some value in the stuff he says, which I know you'll find there is, and with a view to helping people to change their results through the coaching program that he has. He's also going to be running something that he showed me and Sue, well, it must be 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago, something that absolutely took my breath away. I mean, it's a very strange thing for me to say this, but when I'd never encountered anything quite like the subject he covered that day, and the way he covered it in terms of interpreting people's personalities really from their body form, the way they are, because all of you I know will understand this when I say that you know essentially you are the image you have of yourself. You reflect externally what you think about internally. And John created a program called Body Forms, and Body Forms is a very simple way of arriving at an understanding of somebody's personality, the way they think, in other words, simply by observing some of the things they do, not complicated things. It's not like NLP in the sense of, you know, you're looking at IQs, primary modalities, submodalities, all that sort of stuff. What this does is it makes it a very simple way of interpreting the likely way that someone will communicate and what they do in terms of internalizing their own thinking. You know, whether they're thinkers, whether they're expressive people, and so on, those sorts of things. And when John first showed it to us, as I said, I was totally and utterly astonished by it, and very much picked it up as a tool to help other people to use. And John's going to be running a session, and we're going to be recording it on exactly how that program actually works while he's here in late August or early September. We haven't quite nailed the date yet. And that will be to an invited audience. Now, people who come to that should be prepared to be exposed. It's perhaps the right kind of word, because exposed is what John does when he interprets people's body form. Essentially, he'll give an interpretation of who you are based on how you look. And whilst I found it fascinating, I also found it quite a little bit scary, because, you know, essentially he's reading you as if you were a book, and that in our industry is an extremely powerful thing to have available in your tool bag, because, you know, we're about communication. We're about conveying our message to people in a way which helps them to move from one position, the position they're in right now, to a new position, a new understanding, a transference of energy, if you like. And this program that he's put together is extremely powerful at helping people to do that in a more effective way. John's written much material, as you probably would expect of someone of his experience and the kind of industry he's in. If you go to John Kanary with a K, not a C, johnkanary.com, then that'll give you a little bit more insight into the kinds of things that he's done thus far. And I'm running material here longer than perhaps I expected to, because John still hasn't managed to turn up. So he's a speaker, he's an author, he's an all-round great guy. And Sue, perhaps you'd help me out here a little bit and just give your take on John while I try and track him down.
Okay, my apologies if you hear a lot of buzzing. It's my computer. So I'm in Essex, and Nigel's in Lincolnshire at the moment. John is just the most intuitive person I have ever met, without a doubt. And you know, sometimes when you meet someone, and perhaps you've got a view of how they should be and what they should be, and this man just blew me away. We met him, we had the chance to have breakfast with him at a conference in Harrogate, about 14 years ago, I can't remember, and just really blew me away, because he was so intuitive, he was so calm and very humble, and he'd hate me saying all this in front of him, and he has been such an inspiring part of our lives. And when I very first did Born Rich, and many of you will have actually done Born Rich seminars, and the ones who haven't, then you need to try and do that as soon as you can, and hopefully we'll get that. Nigel, you're drinking beer. So kind of the most important thing is that this man just can read people so easily, and he astonishes me. Nigel switched his camera off now. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. I don't know where he is. He's on his way back. They've been out all day with people, and I know that kind of he'll be with us as soon as he can. One of the interesting things Nigel was saying about the body forms, and just to really how it had impacted on our family's life. And a lot of you know my daughter Lauren, and when she was setting up her wedding breakfast table settings, she worked the whole thing out on body forms, so that every one of the 120 people that attended actually got on. And she had one little problem: she didn't know one of the people. And John's joined us. I'm going to hand back to Nigel. You're fed up with me this cracking on. So I'll let John. Oh, John's there.
Hi.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
How are you, Susie?
I'm great, thank you. Glad you could spend the time with us.
Oh, that's really rush. I just finished speaking, I just finished a seminar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Anyway, I'm going to hand you back to Nigel, and I'm going to mute mine because there's a lot of feedback on it. So I'll hand it over to Nigel and John.
Okay, great.
John, we've spent the last 10 minutes bigging you up.
Oh, well, I'll probably need that, Nige, okay?
Yeah.
Really sorry, but when I finished speaking there, everybody had to have something to say, and we had to hang and hang and hang. But anyway, we're here. Good stuff.
Thanks ever so much for making the effort. I hope people appreciate it, and I certainly do. It's rare to get someone of your gravitas actually sharing interesting stuff with people on an ad hoc basis, which I know you're doing today, which is I'm extremely grateful for that. So I've no idea what you're going to cover other than what we kind of chatted about yesterday. People in this kind of business that we're in have always struggled with challenges of their own.
Sure.
I don't think they're particularly unique. Most people struggle with similar kinds of things, I suspect, but it's in a way a bit tougher for networkers because this is a business which everybody says is you're not in it on your own. It's a business of your own, but you're not on your own.
Yeah.
But actually, this is a business much like the loneliness of the long-distance runner. You kind of are doing it for yourself, and you're not always working with a team of people around you, which tends to be what happens when you go to work. But you've got an organizational structure. Your role fits very neatly in that structure. You kind of know what expectations are, and you're working to some form of job description. Well, a lot of what happens in networking, it seems to me, especially with the experiences we've had over the many years, is people don't seem to understand what their role is well enough to focus upon the day-to-day activity that creates real results for them. And I know that's a kind of broad picture, but it's focusing upon the sort of activities that people undertake on a daily basis, that daily discipline, which makes the difference between the results they get and the results they'd really like to get. Now you are the master of result change, and that's really, I guess, where I'm coming at it from, which is, how do you help people to change the focus of kind of lack of activity into focused activity that brings the results they really want in their lives? So hopefully you can help us with that, John.
Well, to start with, the first thing we have to do is we have to get right with ourselves. We have to know where we are, where it is that we want to go. Can everybody see me? Something just popped up there. I don't know what it is.
I hope so.
What is that, Nigel? Do you know?
That.
Hmm?
You look fine to me, John. We can see you without any problem.
Okay, because I don't know what this is, Andre. Right there, do you? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So I think where we have to start with something like this is find out. First of all, we got to be, like I said, we got to be really right with ourselves. We got to know, a little bit about us, a little bit about what we want to do, and how those two things actually come together. As most people say, why do people do the things they do? Well, I could sit here all day talking about that, maybe never really arrive at the answer for everybody, or that the one that everybody really wants. But I believe that if we're going to go somewhere here, I think we need to have this program, and maybe next week do another program, and if you like, even a third week, we'll do another program. I think we really need to do it that way to kind of like put all these pieces together, because if you think about what Nigel said, this thing called success is really a bit of a puzzle. It really is. But it gets a little bit better if only we have the pieces of that puzzle to put together. And that's what our job is to put those pieces together. There's a great story about a young boy who was at home on a Saturday morning. He was all excited because his dad promised they were going to go and play a little bit of football. And there was a couple of executives showed up, and his dad said, just give me a few minutes and we'll be on our way. Well, a half an hour later, he's still there. An hour later, he's still there. And he told his son, just give me another 15 minutes and we'll be on our way. Still, half an hour, nothing changed. And finally, Dad said, listen, here's a jigsaw puzzle, and what I'd like you to do is you put together this picture of the world, and when you're finished, we'll go out to the field and we'll play football. And the little boy took hold of this thing and he walked away, and he was back in about 10 minutes. And his dad kind of staggered a little bit. He said, how did you do this in 10 minutes? And the little boy said, well, you see, Dad, on the back of the world, there was a picture of a little boy, and when I put him back together, the world came together rather quickly. And I think, that tells a very interesting story about maybe what pieces we should be putting together first at all times. And I'd like to start that by suggesting this. I believe that everybody on this call today has exactly the same thing in common. I believe that every one of us, we all want to take, and I take a big R and I put an R on a flip chart, a whiteboard, or whatever. And I say we all want to take and improve the results in our life. And when I talk about results, I want you to consider them this way. I'd like you to think about results in terms of your health, in terms of your happiness, and in terms of your wealth, like your income. And when you look at the one area there called health, I was speaking about this today, and an individual actually said to me, he said, well, John, what I'm most interested in is how I'm going to earn more money. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, you better understand your health and the role it plays in it. You see, if you understand that your health has everything to do with your moods, if you have good health, you're going to have good moods. If you have poor health, you're going to have bad moods. And those moods have everything to do with the choices that we make in our life. The second thing that we need to take a look at is something called our happiness. That's the second thing. I was in Malaysia a number of years ago. I was doing a program, and I just happened to have a couple of days where I had a break. And when I take those breaks, I love to go out a little bit of run, a little exploring. And I was out in this beautiful field taking a run around. And as I was running around this field, I noticed some people were doing something called Tai Chi, about a dozen. And that gets my interest because that's something I like to do. I love martial arts. I've been doing it a long time. And I got the master there. He kind of gave me the head nod there to join in, and I did for a little while. And when we finished, he asked everybody to sit down in the field, and he said, tell me, we're going to go through some wisdom bits today. And he said, what I'd like you to do is tell me what needs to happen for you to be happy today. And all of you on this call, ask yourself that question. What needs to happen for you to be happy today? And I asked that question of everybody today, and I didn't get a direct answer, not once. And then I said, the only thing you have to do to be happy today is you need to decide to be. You see, make a decision that right now you're going to be happy today. Nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can stop you from actually making that kind of decision right now. And then the next one is called our wealth. Now think about this for a moment. When I use this word wealth, I want you to think of wealth as a state of consciousness, a state of awareness. I'm not looking at wealth as money at this point. The manifestation of wealth becomes money. But wealth is like our thoughts, our feelings, our actions. It's, that richness in our mind, that richness in our idea, that significance where we want to take and make a difference in our life and in the lives of other people. And the more and more we do that, you see, look at the 4 basic desires. We all have 4 basic desires. And desire, what does that mean? It means there's an idea within us seeking to come through us. That's what desire is. Desire is a word that comes from something called deicire, which means to give birth to. That there's something in all of us trying to become more and more over and above what we've already become. And that first desire is the desire for possessions. We all would like maybe a nicer home, nicer car, some trips, whatever it might be, but that's the first desire that we have. And then the second one is that desire for experiences. Like we'd all like maybe speak another language, learn how to play an instrument, maybe get involved in kids' sports or something. But we all have those desires. And then the third one is the desire to love and the desire to be loved. I believe that Michael Jackson was in such a position that when he was off that platform, he didn't know if he was being loved or if he was being manipulated. But what's interesting about that is when he was performing, he always felt loved. And then we go to number 4, which I think is what we are all about here today. And number 4 is the desire for significance, the desire to make a difference, the desire to make some kind of a contribution. Like I can tell you, I don't need to do what I do today. Like in the programs that I do, like I'm either writing a book, reading a book, doing a seminar, doing a coaching program, whatever it is. And over those years, of all those years, the investment that I made in myself in terms of learning, I've been able now to make this such a unique part of my life. But I don't even have to leave the house that much anymore. But I do do it continuously because I like and I enjoy making a difference in the individual, no matter how big or how small. And I know that I was doing that today with the people that I was working with. So what would be something where you would feel a sense of significance? See, I know what Sue and Nigel are talking about here with Janess and what, with some of you maybe are already in the program. The whole idea is to make a significant difference in the lives of other people, whether as clients or as a part of your team, whatever it might be. Focus on, people that you're about significance. You're about making a difference. Well, let's say that we have that pretty clear. We know what it is. Like we took maybe half an hour. We went through the things that we want on a physical level, like possessions, and then what makes a difference, and then love and significance. And we took like that 4 cornerstones and we started to fill it out. That had put us in a pretty good position. See, think about this. I one time was in Greece, and a good friend of mine said, John, I'm going to introduce you to a goal that you've set for yourself. And I wasn't sure what that was, but she said, way back when you had this idea of a place that you wanted to go. And I had an idea of what she meant. And I get in this car and we started driving. And 4 hours I pulled into a place called Delphi. And at Delphi is the Ark of Apollo, which is where I wanted to go. And over the Ark of Apollo at Delphi, there's actually just 2 words. Those are know the self. And what do we really know about us? Do we know us well enough to kind of move to another level in our life? To understand that as I start to get into this, I'm going to work with you on these, what I refer to as the 7 laws or the 7 gifts. And at the conclusion of that, Susie and Nigel would kick in, and if you'd like to do something next week in addition that builds on that, I'd be more than happy to do it. But let's put it this way. I know that you want more than you presently have. Whatever that might be, it could be happiness, health, wealth, whatever that might be. I know that all of us have a sincere desire to become more than we presently are. I know that if you're considering something like Janess, that if in your heart and soul you could figure out how to do it, you probably would. I understand where you're coming from with all of that. But let's start off this way. If we look at this very first gift that we need, if we're going to grow, if we're going to become everything we want to become, if we're going to become, like, let's say, mates that we are, business partners that we are, if we're going to become the parents that we want to be, then I really believe the first thing we have to do is go to principle number 1. To kind of look at there was a guy in California. He was in a place called Minnesota. He was a school teacher. He was 25 years old. And at the age of 32, he had a company with 200,000 people in it. His name was William N. Patrick. And what was interesting about this, Paul Yale went to see him, and he said, how did you make such an enormous change in your life in such a short period of time, in like 7 years? He said, you also won the Horatio Alger Award, which was a look up that was on with, but you won the Horatio Alger Award, which is the number in the United States. He said, Mr. Hill, he said, it was the day I absolutely decided, once and for all, that I would never lie to myself again. Do you know how many of us just hold ourselves back because we kid ourselves into believing certain things like, I'm going to do this when the kids go back to school, or I'm going to do this when I have a few more contacts. We set ourselves with such, with ideas that are just not true, and we buy into those ideas. It's like half the world living with an idea that was given to them by someone not living their own lives. It's a conditioning that all of us go through at times. But look at maybe the second one now. It's called clarity. Clarity is what it is we want. How clear would you say you are as an individual? What it is, the way that you want to live your life, what it is that you want your life, and are you clear on some kind of a plan on how you're going to do that? I think it's essential that you have clarity. Clarity gives you power. Clarity gives you that sense. Someone once said that the very first law of the universe is order. That means we know what it is we want. We have a strong desire of what we want. We have a picture of what it looks like. And then we start each and every day with an action plan on how we're going to get there. In other words, if you have a mindset, works like this. I have a mindset that I had to develop at one time in life because I was knowing things that happened to me to determine what I was going to do. And I felt I didn't have to do that. I have a book behind my bed. It's called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And what that book is all about is that there's no such thing as things happening to good people. They happen to everybody. Everybody has things that happen to them. So I developed this idea that it's not what happens to me, it's how I respond. It's how I respond to what happens to me that determines my results. So when I was looking at and getting clear on what it is I want, each time that I would change the choice, in other words, on how I was going to act towards something, I had more clarity, I had more power, everything got better. So the third thing is our belief, and we all know what a difference that is. I remember reading Napoleon Hill's great book, Think and Grow Rich. And the chapter he talked about on belief, he said, no amount of reading, no amount of listening or going to seminars or listening to programs, he said, is ever going to give you the belief that you need. It's something that you must embrace. It is something that we must take on. We must take it on and work with it ourselves. He said there's a difference in wishing for something and believing in something. We've got to believe that we can actually do this and then begin to nurture that belief. And I think the best way to do that is if we take an attitude, a proactive attitude toward everything that happens around us. We choose how we're going to respond. We don't let the conditions or circumstance to choose for us. Principle number 3, which is called commitment. How committed are you to what it is you're doing? Let me make an observation here, okay? I would say that everybody on the call has a pretty good idea of what they would want in their life. But how committed are you to what it is you are doing? I will say this, and I say this on behalf of Susie and of course Nigel. If you are serious about taking a good look at Jeunesse, I mean, if you're willing to take a look at it and maybe see if you can make it work, the very first thing that you will need to do that is you will have to make some kind of a commitment of, say, 30, 60, or 90 days. I do a program where I constantly refer to what is called 100 Days to Greatness. And I say that if a person would to take and set themselves a goal, a target of something that they've never done before, and they would commit that 90-day period with some specific type activities where you're going to do maybe a presentation a day, or maybe you're going to do 2 presentations a week. But the commitment that you make, it's not about being big or small. It's about keeping that commitment, persistently staying with that commitment until you complete the 100 days. Do you know that you could literally change anything you want about yourself? And I don't mean there's something about yourself you have to change. I'm talking about some of the ideas, the information, like What could you change about yourself today that would make a difference in, say, everything you do with your spouse, with your children, with your business, with everything you do? If you were to change what you do, something that you could change today, not next week or tomorrow, but today, and see what would happen. So where do we go from commitment? We go to what is called consistency. You know, that's a favorite word of mine, because I believe we have to be consistent in our commitment every day. We need to be consistent with our belief every day, consistent in our clarity, and consistent in telling ourselves the truth, being honest with ourselves. And our next one, number 6, which is refers to as standards. And I mean, how important are standards? You know, I had a great mentor one time that told me, he said, John, set yourself up with a standard that is far beyond any standard that anybody else could impose on you. You know, he was right on the money. He was right. And then one day I was down in Australia on the Gold Coast, and I was out for a little walk. It was kind of a little bit of a day off for me and somebody else that was on the beach that day. And as I was kind of like running down the beach, I noticed the people coming toward me. There was quite a gang. It looked like a dozen or 15 people or whatever, but there was one person in that group, and he looked about a foot taller than everybody else. And I found out why I thought that, because as I got closer, it was Tony Robbins with his entourage or whatever. And I'd met him before, but I started a little conversation with him, and I said, Tony, tell me, how did you do so much so quick, such a short period of time? How did you do this? And here's his exact words. He said, it was the day that I absolutely decided what was no longer in my life. He set a standard. He made a commitment of what would no longer be acceptable in his life. And he named a number of things that were the only things that were going to be acceptable in his life. So if you were to do something along those lines in terms of a commitment, you know, it's kind of like in losing weight. What is no longer acceptable to you if you wanted to lose weight? If you wanted to create and grow your business a little bit each day or a whole lot each day, what would have to be no longer acceptable, and what would be acceptable for you actually to get that into gear and pull that off? You see, if you made that 100-day commitment, I mean, and then 100 days came by, the worst that could ever happen is that you would be better, you'd be more aware, you would have greater consciousness, you would have a greater attitude, you'd feel better about you and everything that you do. And then that last one, number 7. And I worked on this quite a bit today, and you'll probably understand why. I was working with financial planners, like straight commission people. And working with them, they come so close sometimes to really making a big change in their life. And I had, you know, one guy started to tell me that he struggles at least once a day. And I said, have you ever considered that struggle is a signal or is a sign that you're ready for a performance breakthrough? Have you ever considered that? This just might be the day. And I said, suspend your belief and try that. Like, in other words, get stronger when the struggle gets stronger. You get stronger. And he said, well, fear kind of moves in and takes over just a little bit. Listen to me carefully on how persistence can play a role in dealing effectively with fear. You've got to set up a conversation with this thing called fear. You see, fear is like a second person in your life that disagrees with you. Fear only has energy because we give it energy. On its own, fear has no energy. It has none. Fear has nothing going for it other than the power that we give it. So I would take this here position with fear. And I'll tell you, there's a young guy that really took me up on this. And every time I see him, he sees me, we start to laugh because he knows how well it's working. And this is what we do. Fear, move aside. I'm a busy person. I've got a lot to do. I haven't got time for you right now. I know that you're just trying to change my mind on something, but I want you to know you're not going to do it. You're not going to take me off of what I've decided to do. And you know what's even more important than that? I will spend some time with you on my way back, on my journey to success. I will spend some time with you. But when I do come back, I'm going to be so confident. I'm going to be so focused. I don't think you'll want to be around me at that time, because that just may be the end of you. This is like a simple, basic idea, and the more you do that, the more fun you have, and you will see definite, absolute changes as you do it. But you got to persist if you're going to do it. And a thing you should write down about this word persistence. Please take a little bit of time today, after the program, whatever. I will cultivate the habit of persistence in my life. That no matter what comes into my life, persistence will be my watchword to break through whatever happens. So please take the idea this way. You sit down and you build an idea into your mind of a 100-day goal, a 100-day objective, 100 days to some vision that you have. When you look at that idea, understand this. There's both good and bad in that idea. It's called the law of polarity. You can focus on why your idea will work, or you can focus on why the idea won't work. Like I said, that's the law of polarity. And as long as that idea just remains on the screen of your conscious mind, there will be no change. But if you get excited about that idea and you act on that idea, remember, with no action, it's like throwing sand in the wind. What you really have to focus on here is the idea being a reality. Like, see the idea as already complete. Don't look at the idea as it might work, it might not work. See it as though it's already worked. And if you can get excited about it, that idea then begins to move into what is called your subconscious mind. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. Any idea that is given to the mind, like the subconscious mind, that is emphasized, that you do over and over again, whether the idea is feared or revered, that idea begins to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form that's available to it. Gosh, I would give anything for a person to just get the understanding of how your subconscious mind works. If any of you have a garden at home, you'll understand. Any seed planted in your garden, the garden doesn't care what you plant. The mind doesn't care what you plant. Whatever you plant, poison ivy or beautiful flowers, the land will return. That's what it's supposed to do. But you see, remember, it's how well you look after your garden that determines how well things grow. It's how well we look after this thing called our mind that determines how well it's going to grow. And as we put, we're not going to lie to ourselves. We're not going to kid ourselves. And number two, we're going to have that clarity that we need. And the more we take action, the stronger our belief is going to develop, which leads up, that'll be led by what is called your commitment to support that belief. And if you do it every day consistently, like just that same thing, but a little better every day, a little better every day. Someone once said that successful people have formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. Listen, let me say that again. Successful people have formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. See, failures don't like prospecting. Failures don't like planning. Well, guess what? Successful people don't. But what they want is far more important than the pain of doing it. Far more important than the pain of doing it. That's why, if you think about it, there's only two pains in life. The pain of regret, which so many people have. I wish I woulda. If only I coulda. That's the way they live their lives, in wishing what could have been. I wish I woulda, I wish I coulda. If only, if only. So the pain of discipline is very short term. The pain of regret, that could be forever. So the consistent focus of an idea that you act on will eventually penetrate the depths of your consciousness, and it will very soon become a part of you. And then our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are the only thoughts, feelings, and actions that must return to visit upon us. So you chew over these ideas. You work with two of the nicest people that I have met on the planet, Susie and Nigel. It's like the Bobbsey twins. Wherever they are, they're always together. You know, it's interesting. So nice to see them. And please spend some time with them. Map out a plan. Get yourself organized. Get yourself focused, and see what a change you can make in your life in any area. And then if you would like to maybe continue on just where I left off to maybe a next step or another step, whatever, showing you how maybe to communicate more effectively to people, I'd be more than happy to do that. So thank you very much for your time today. I more than appreciate it. And I'll turn this back over to Nige and Susan. Okay? Thank you very much. There's Susie.
Okay. Hi. Hi there. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Words of wisdom as usual. We had a section in the middle there, John. The sound quality was really not very good. So I apologise for that. And there's nothing that you've done wrong, John. That it's just because you're so far away.
What was it? What was that? Well, no, there's no such a thing as space on the internet.
Well,
it could be next door or 1,000 miles on the internet. Doesn't matter. What was? Do you remember what it was?
No, it was just no. There was a space of about 5 minutes, John. So you know it doesn't matter because I think most people got some benefit, and the most important section was very clear. So that's great. Okay. But right. We can always rerun that again and make sure that the quality is better. I don't understand why it's so bad today. Okay. But okay. Thank you so much for spending your time, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So we're going to be on again next week, and maybe John will be with us as well.
Okay. Well, we can do that.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Okay, guys, thanks very much, and wish you good night wherever you are, and speak soon. Take care.